There it is.
All right.
No, I know we're done. I'm just throwing out.
So before I actually get into this, like quick show of hands, who's actually done public service before?
What is considered public service?
Pumpkin control, parades, races. Okay. Sweet. So I'm preaching to the choir. Awesome. We will put this on the website at least. So cool. So
Everybody can move up front, don't be shy.
yeah, you can move in front if you want. The text is probably really small, so it's all good. So basically, what is public service? Obviously, it's just organized events that are put together by ham radio operators to offer volunteer communication support for community events, right? So that's going to be your foot races, hikes, cycling events, different competitions, fairs, parades, Halloween night, because, you know, ghosts and goblins do terrible things, all that kind of stuff, right? So the goal of these types of events, as you all know, since you've done them before, is pretty simple, right? It is to help to supplement communications for the event and to make sure that there is sort of an extra set of eyes for to support the safety and welfare of participants, staff, general public, and that sort of stuff, right? And more importantly, I think it's a good opportunity to practice our communication skills and actually get out in the field and use our rigs and use our radios, right? There's a big difference between using your radio sitting at your desk at home and actually having to need to use it very proactively when you're out on an event like this. So that's what they are. Every time I mention public service events, people always ask me, well, what is it? What do you do? That's a hard question to answer because it's different for every event, right? If it's pumpkin patrol, you're just sitting in your car with, you know, periodic check-ins. If it's something like the Boilermaker or any of the marathons and stuff, you'll be at a sort of a certain point or a station where your job is to kind of keep eyes and communicate back what's happening in those areas. If it's something like the Rome Honor America Days, you're actually in a parade, driving in a parade, right? So it takes many different forms, and there are a lot of different things that you can do. In terms of what you're using, right? Most of the time, it's going to be a directed net, obviously. For the most part, it's analog 2 meters, but there are some clubs like in Syracuse, they use DMR, right, for the whole thing. They have a whole communications plan. The RAGS group is great. They use kind of a modified like 205 with the whole thing of each person that's going to be involved and sort of what frequencies and channels and everything that they're going to be communicating on, right? And basically what you do is you'll go through a period of call-ups. If you see something, you know, you'll say something. The most important thing though is that you're not supposed to actually intervene for the most part, right? You're supposed to leave that up to the first responders or folks that are who is their job to actually, you know, provide help or assistance. Your job is to communicate only. So. If you've never seen any of these, if you've done your ICS training, you've seen these before. This is a Form 202. It outlines the event objectives. This is taken from a RAGS event in the New York State Marathon back in 2022. And this is something that will usually be set to you ahead of the event if the organizer is actually on their game, and you'll know kind of like what your job is and what you're supposed to be doing throughout the event. So that's this form if you've never seen it before. You also get something like this. This is their sort of modified 205, where, you know, it'll list every single location. In this case, it's you know, water stops or mile markers along the racetrack. The name of the person that's going to be there, the call sign, their phone number if it's not redacted by me, and any sort of additional remarks. Sometimes you'll have multiple people. You'll have a main person and a spare, or you'll have people, you know, kind of near the same area. All this information would be something that's provided to you ahead of the event. Comms plan, like I was talking about, this is a very simple example of the two repeater, well, let's see, two repeaters, one primary, one spare, and then a backup tag channel that RAGS uses for their events. It's, if you've never used DMR before, it's kind of interesting to try and use that. It's a little bit different. Every year there's always somebody that, you know, they're just like, their mind is just blown by DMR because they never used it before, even though it might be old hat to other people. But so this is another example of something that you'll get prior to the event that you want to familiarize yourself with, so you actually know how to what you're going to be talking on, right? How to communicate. The other question that I get when I talk about public service, what do you need to participate? Well, number one, you need a radio, right? Depending on the type of event and where you're going to be, it can either be an HT or like a mobile rig. For simplex things like the DeRuyter Trumptown thing where they don't actually use repeaters, you're definitely going to want, you know, at least 25 watts and a decent antenna. So at a bare minimum, a mobile setup. For some of the other city type things like the Boilermaker, you can usually get by with just an HT, you know, to hit whatever repeater that they're using for the net. And then if you're doing anything out Syracuse way, DMR. So it is a little more complicated to program DMR on the fly unless you're really good at programming from the keypad. So it's always important to program all the stuff that you get in the communications plan into your radio first and test it before you go out there. Other things you need, hand mics are great. They look cool too. You can put them on the thing there and you're like, I'm official, I'm a ham radio operator or public service event. You also can have earpieces, extra batteries, shiny vests so that you don't get run over and killed, because that would suck and that would be very fun. Those types of things to kind of help you, you know, sort of communicate better. And then obviously weather appropriate clothing is important because it changes. The weather here changes every 5 minutes. If it's, you know, 2 weeks from now when the St. Patrick's Day parade is going on, it could be 70 and sunny, or it could be 20 degrees and you know, snowing. You never know. You're going to be outdoors for hours, right? Usually 2 to 4 hours, depending on sort of like the event. So you need to be prepared for that. And I like to have a sort of a pen and a notebook with me. I've never actually used it when I've been out on a public service thing, but I like to have it anyway. So.
Don't forget your ham radio hat.
And your hat. If you don't have a hat, you need your ham radio hat.
An identifying call sign hat.
Anything I've forgotten about what we need from our Aries Races representatives? So this is me.
With the hat.
With the hat. Well, okay, this is actually not a ham radio hat. This is a Liverpool hat. With the little vest and the whole deal. I was stationed right outside of Utica University for last year's Boilermaker. It was a beautiful day. Basically, all this was the road race here. There's a little bus stop right behind this area here. There's a bunch of people handing out waters to the runners as they go that way. And literally my job was just to stand there and watch to see if anybody was kind of puffing and puffing, not doing well, you know, not making it, if they fell over, if they tripped, whatever, and reporting that back through the net so that they could get the help that they need. Should have brought some sunscreen that day. So why would somebody go volunteer at a public service event? Like I said, it's a great opportunity to just practice our skills as ham radio operators. Number two, it's also just a great way to give back to the community. And it's sort of a low pressure way to sort of test your operating skills in a similar way that you would when you are like if you're actually in an emergency. And you also get to meet, you know, friendly faces, some of which you might have talked to on various repeaters or nets. You've never actually met them in person. Boilermaker was a great example of that. There's probably, I think, almost 40 people total that volunteered for that last year. And I think there were 10 people just at last year's Boilermaker alone that I actually met in person that I had talked to over the past couple of years. So, and sometimes you get swag too. You get free T-shirts and you know, lanyards and other cool stuff like that. So hey, that's bonus. All right, so what's happening next? So there's probably 10 to 12 different events that are sort of recurring here. Most of them run by RAGS. Some of them are run by other folks. The most recent one is actually the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which is coming up on the 16th. I think they're still looking for volunteers for that, so, if you're available, you can definitely reach out to Walt N2IK, to volunteer. And then the next one after that, that I sort of recommend for folks is the Boilermaker. That's a really big one, and they're always looking for extra folks, so. And that's nice because it's close-ish, it's a little bit closer than Syracuse, you don't really have to drive that far, and, it's a really good group of folks. That's run by, Bob Decker, AH2CU from, the Utica Club, so it's a good,
And he was my Elmer
and he was Dave's Elmer. That's the most
at
important
the
thing.
MVCC class I took on radio.
Yeah. So that's a really fun event. I would, if, aside from pumpkin patrol, pick something else and go do it like once this year. That's my sort of advice and what I would hope everyone can do. It's fun to get out there. If you do go to DeRuyter, just watch out for the elephants. Moving on. So in this, I'll share this out via groups.io later, but basically I have, the club has a list of sort of all the local public service events that are available out there, when they're happening, who the contact person is, kind of all in one spot. So you can go through and see what's going on, see who's there. I also have a link here to the RAGS public service sign up form, since like probably 10 of those events are run through RAGS, like you can actually just submit your information all at once. Say, yes, I can attend this one, no, I can't attend that one, basically all the way until their final event in October. So also, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the a YouTube guy named the Tech Prepper. He's an interesting character. He, a couple years ago, after he did his first sort of public service event where you're actually kind of out in the field type thing, did a really interesting after action report that kind of walked through like his experiences with that. So if you're totally new to public service, interesting video to watch and goes into a lot more detail about kind of what that experience can kind of be like. So that's it. Quick and easy.
Yay.
Any questions?
Yeah, I will want to point out that I have heard others comment on the Boilermaker and that they use tactical call signs, but it still does not, you still have to identify yourself every 10 minutes.
Yes.
So you're
last year
better
they were
off-
better about it.
Yeah, you're far better off saying that, first aid station 5 KDGT, because it may be more than 10 minutes before they get back to you.
Yeah, most of the time on net call, it's like you're just calling in and then they won't come back to you for at least probably a half hour. So it is important to actually
Must end a communication with your call sign and within every 10 minutes.
the other one thing that it occurs to me I didn't put into the presentation, depending on which event you go to, they actually use some interesting technologies as well. So at the Boilermaker, they do make use of a Arden mesh network between a couple of the aid stations that they use to sort of actually track via computer, because there's, 15, 20,000 people that run this event. So they set that up explicitly for that event. So it's not just, analog 2 meters, like there is other sort of aspects of the hobby as well that are kind of fun. Thank you.
Thanks. The testees didn't see that.
I emailed them and I was like, hey guys, come to a meeting. And oh, who let Bob in there?